Imagine it is so cold, your feet, wrapped only in torn rags, leave bloody footprints in the snow with every step. Imagine your only meal for the day is a hard, black biscuit made of flour and ash. That you have to break against a rock before you can even attempt to chew it. This wasn't a nightmare from the Dark Ages. This was the reality for the army that won America's independence. Welcome, curious night owls, to Sleepy History Narratives, the channel that finds the grim, forgotten, and often bizarre truths behind the world's greatest stories. Tonight, we journey back to the brutal winter of 1777, to a place whose name has become a symbol of endurance. Valley Forge. If you believe history is best served cold, and that the truth is always more interesting than the myth, then a like on this video is the best way to let me know you're in the right place. And as always, I'd love to know where in the world you are joining me from. But before we step into the freezing mud, let's get ready for our journey. Find that comfortable position. Dim the lights. Let the noise of the modern world fade away, like a bad memory. The emails can wait. The notifications have no power here. Take a deep breath in, hold it for a moment. And let it all go with a long, slow exhale. Because what you're about to hear is not the version from your schoolbook. Not powdered wigs. Not crisply pressed blue uniforms. Not eloquent speeches etched in marble. But frost-bitten toes and rotting flesh. Moldy, rock-hard fire cakes. Bloodstains across snowdrifts, stains that nobody has the strength to clean. This is the revolution without its polish. And you, listening right now, are no longer you. For tonight, you are an 18-year-old boy. Thin. Hollow-eyed. Hungry. Sick. Cold. Forgotten. You once believed in glory, in flags and fanfare. But here, behind the lines, far from parades and proclamations, you will learn what liberty truly costs. Not paid in rhetoric, but in limbs. In breath. In a will that decays 1 hour at a time. Welcome, to the front behind the front. Welcome to Valley Forge. It all started on a late summer afternoon. The air was clean, and life in your small village unfolded as it had for hundreds of years. Slow, peaceful, and predictable. You, an 18-year-old boy, were thinking about the upcoming corn harvest, about the girl next door with the shy smile, about everything except war. And then, they arrived. A recruiting officer and a drummer, on horseback. Carrying the dust of distant roads and a current of restless energy into your village's tranquility. The drummer beat a sharp, powerful rhythm. An unfamiliar sound that drew everyone out of their homes, including you and your friend, Jedediah. The officer, his uniform still relatively new and his leather boots gleaming, stood upon a wooden crate and began his speech. His voice was loud and full of fire. He spoke of liberty, a word that sounded so large and sacred. He spoke of the oppression of a distant king, a tyrant across the ocean. He painted a picture of a new nation, a promised land where every man would be his own master. And to achieve that, he said, all it took was a little courage. A little sacrifice. You listened, unblinking. His words were like a cool stream pouring into your soul, which had grown parched from monotony. This life of tilling soil from dawn till dusk, was it really all that was meant for you? You glanced over at Jedediah. His eyes were shining. He had been completely sold from the first mention of glory. The officer produced a large ledger and an inkwell. Your names will be written in history, he declared. As the first to stand for a great ideal. This was the moment of decision. You felt your heart beat faster. A part of you whispered that this was madness. That war meant death. Meant leaving your family. But another part, a larger part, the part that yearned for adventure and a more meaningful life, was screaming. Jedediah was the first to step up. He signed his name with a proud, messy scrawl. It was your turn. You stepped forward. You took the quill pen. You dipped it into the inkwell. It had a pungent smell, of iron, of earth. And of irreversible decisions. You took a deep breath. And then, you wrote your name. The moment the nib touched the paper, a strange sensation shot up your spine. A mixture of terror and pure exhilaration. It was done. It could not be undone. You had wagered your future on a word called liberty. The officer clapped you on the shoulder. "Welcome, soldier," he said with a smile that you would only later recognize as being tinged with pity. That night, you sang songs of victory at the tavern. You felt like a hero in the making. You didn't know, of course, that it was your last peaceful night for a very, very long time. The next morning, you shouldered a simple knapsack, hugged your mother, and promised to return. You and Jedediah walked together down the dirt road, leaving the only village you had ever known. Behind you was the past. Ahead, you believed, glory awaited. You were wrong. Ahead was mud, gunfire, and Valley Forge. The euphoria of a grand decision can carry you out of your village, but it cannot carry your knapsack for you. The first few miles are easy. You and Jedediah walk with a jaunty spring in your step. Shoulder to shoulder, feeling like you're part of something monumental. You talk of the battles you'll win, the heroic deeds you'll perform. The air is thick with a naive optimism. But the road is long, and optimism is short-lived. By the second day, the jokes trail off. The songs go quiet. All that remains is the sound. The shuffling rustle of thousands of feet on a dirt road. The creak of wagon wheels. The dry cough of the soldier in front of you. And the endless, monotonous rhythm of your own steps. Left foot, then right foot. Repeat. For hours on end. The knapsack that felt feather-light back home now feels as if it's filled with rocks. With every step, it thumps against your back, an aching reminder of the burden you have willingly shouldered. The strap of your musket digs into your shoulder, leaving a raw, red line that you can only silently endure. And then, your shoes begin to speak. The stiff new leather shoes. Your small pride upon leaving the village, are now betraying you. They were not made for long marches. They were made for going to church on Sunday. The heel begins to chafe against your skin. At first, it's a minor annoyance. Then it becomes a hot spot, a smoldering burn. You try to walk a little differently, to shift your weight, but it's no use. With every step, the chafe bites. A small fire igniting on your heel. You know a blister is forming. A blister that could make you limp. And in the army, to limp is to be left behind. You don't dare tell anyone. Your world shrinks. It's no longer about liberty or tyrants. It's about the next footstep. How to place your foot without making the blister burst. How to breathe when your throat is parched. How to ignore the dull ache in your shoulders and back. 5 days of marching. The landscape around you blurs into a meaningless smear of green and brown. The villages you pass through look identical. The faces of the townspeople who watch you go by are a mixture of curiosity, pity, and fear. At the end of the 5th day, the officer calls a halt. You almost collapse with relief. You drop your knapsack to the ground. The feeling is glorious. You look ahead. You are no longer on a country road. You are on the edge of a vast field. And in that field are thousands upon thousands of other men. Campfires dot the landscape like earthbound stars. A low, chaotic but energetic hum fills the air. This is it. This is the Continental Army. Your exhaustion is suddenly replaced by something else. A feeling that is both overwhelming and terrifying. The march is over. And you know, the real war is about to begin. The march is over. Your body aches, your feet burn with blisters that weep beneath the torn leather of your shoes. You stand on the edge of a frozen field, staring at a valley that looks more like a graveyard than a camp. The air bites your skin, sharp as a blade, and the wind carries a promise: this place will not be kind to you. You and Jedediah, your friend from the village, are herded with 10 other men toward a cluster of barren trees. A sergeant, his face as hard as the frost beneath his boots, hands you a single tool. One dull axe. Its edge chipped and rusted, for 12 men to share. You look at it, then at the towering oaks and pines, their branches heavy with snow. The sergeant barks his orders: build a hut. Build your home. Build it now, or freeze. You grip the axe first. Its handle is splintered, rough against your palms, already raw from carrying your musket. You swing at the nearest tree. And the blade bites shallow, barely scratching the bark. The shock of the impact jolts up your arms, into your shoulders, settling as a dull ache in your bones. You swing again. And again. Each strike feels like a plea to a merciless god. The tree stands unmoved, mocking your effort. You pass the axe to Jedediah. His swings are no better. The other men wait, shivering, their breath clouding in the air like ghosts. The axe changes hands, over and over, each man taking his turn to wrestle with the frozen wood. Hours pass. The cold seeps deeper, through your thin coat, through your skin, into the marrow of your bones. Your fingers, red and stiff, fumble with every swing. The sergeant returns, his eyes narrowing at your pitiful progress. He doesn't care that the axe is dull, that the trees are iron-hard in the winter frost, that you haven't eaten more than a crust of bread in days. Faster, he growls, his voice like gravel. You want to scream that one axe for 12 men is madness, but you bite your tongue. In this army, complaints are as useless as dreams of glory. By dusk, your hands are blistered. Your back screams with every movement, and the tree you've all been hacking at finally sways, then crashes to the ground. The sound is a hollow victory. You and the others drag the logs to a clearing. Your boots sinking into the snow, each step a battle against the weight of exhaustion. You stack the logs, notch them as best you can with the useless axe, and pack the gaps with mud that freezes your fingers to the bone. Night falls. The wind howls through the skeletal trees, and you realize this is no home. It's a wooden tomb. Barely tall enough to stand in, barely wide enough for 12 men to lie shoulder to shoulder. The walls are thin, the gaps between the logs let in drafts that cut like knives. You huddle with Jedediah and the others, your bodies pressed close for warmth, but the cold is relentless. It creeps into your dreams, turning them to visions of ice and hunger. You think back to the road you walked, the promises of liberty that carried you here. They feel like a cruel jest now, as distant as the warmth of your mother's hearth. You've built your shelter. Yes, but it's no refuge. It's a cage, locking you in with the winter and the hunger that waits beyond these walls. And tomorrow, you'll learn what hunger truly means. Because in this valley, survival isn't won with axes or muskets. It's won with something far worse, a stubborn, bitter thing they call a fire cake. You wake to the sound of your own stomach, a low growl that feels like a beast clawing at your insides. The cold of the night lingers in your bones, and the wooden tomb you built offers no comfort. You huddle closer to Jedediah, his breath uneven, his face pale even in the dim light. Hunger is no longer a word. It's a weight, pressing down on every thought, every movement. The sergeant tosses you a small sack of flour. Not the fine, sifted kind your mother used for bread, but coarse, gritty, flecked with dirt and weevils. This is your ration. This is your survival. They call it a fire cake, but it's no cake. It's a desperate act, a grim philosophy baked on a stone. You kneel by the weak fire, its smoke stinging your eyes. You mix the flour with a handful of snow, melted in a dented tin cup. The water is gray, flecked with ash from the fire. Your hands tremble as you knead the dough, if you can call it that. It's a paste, thick and unyielding, like wet clay. You flatten it against a rock, warmed by the flames, and watch it harden into something that looks more like a shingle than food. You take your first bite. The fire cake crumbles against your teeth, gritty and tasteless, with a faint bitterness that lingers. It's not nourishment. It's endurance. You chew slowly, forcing it down. Each swallow a battle against your own body. You think of your mother's kitchen, the warm bread she baked, the smell of it filling the house. That memory is a cruel guest now, taunting you with what you've lost. Jedediah tries to joke, says it's better than eating the bark off the trees. His laugh is weak, swallowed by a cough. You force a smile. But your eyes stay fixed on the fire cake in your hand. It's not enough. It's never enough. By noon, the hunger is back, sharper now, like a knife twisting in your gut. You look around at the other men, their faces gaunt, their eyes hollow. Some have already given up, staring blankly at the snow. This is the math of Valley Forge. A handful of flour, a sip of dirty water, and a fire that barely keeps the cold at bay. You learn quickly that hunger isn't just a feeling. It's a teacher. It teaches you to ration your strength, to move slowly, to save every scrap of energy for the next impossible task. But hunger is only the beginning. Beyond the fire, beyond the flimsy walls of your hut, another enemy waits. One you can't see, but one you'll soon feel. In the air, in the crowded bodies pressed against you, in the very ground you walk on. It's coming for you, and it's coming for Jedediah. The fire cake sits like a stone in your stomach, offering no relief. The cold of Valley Forge wraps around you, a relentless grip that seeps through the cracks of your flimsy hut. You and Jedediah sit shoulder to shoulder, trying to steal warmth from each other's trembling bodies. But warmth is a memory now, as distant as the promises that brought you here. You're ordered to stand watch. The sergeant's voice cuts through the dawn, sharp and unyielding. You rise, your joints stiff, your breath clouding in the frigid air. Your coat, if you can call it that, is a patchwork of holes, barely holding together. Your boots are worse, torn leather, soles worn to nothing, exposing your feet to the frozen ground. You have no socks. No one does. The sergeant hands you a strip of dirty cloth, a rag torn from some forgotten blanket. Wrap your feet, he says, his eyes avoiding yours. You take the rag, its texture rough and damp, and bind it around your feet. It's no protection, not really. Just a thin lie between your skin and the snow. You step outside, and the cold hits like a fist. The snow is deep, untouched. A cruel blanket over the valley. Each step crunches, the sound echoing in the stillness. You walk the perimeter, musket heavy on your shoulder. Your eyes scanning the horizon for an enemy that never comes. But the real enemy is beneath you. The snow bites at your feet, the rag soaking through in minutes. Your toes burn, then go numb. A dangerous quiet that you know means trouble. You pause, leaning against a tree to catch your breath. You look down. The snow beneath you is no longer white. It's stained red. A vivid bloom spreading from your feet. The rags have slipped, and your skin, raw and cracked, weeps blood with every step. You stare at it, this flower of pain blossoming in the frost, and feel a strange detachment. This is your blood, your body, but it feels like someone else's story. Jedediah calls to you from his post, his voice hoarse. He's wrapped his own feet in rags. But you can see the same red stains trailing behind him. You nod to each other, a silent agreement that there's no point in complaining. Complaining won't warm your feet. It won't stop the blood. It won't change the truth of this place. You keep walking, leaving a path of crimson footprints in your wake. Each one is a mark of survival. A testament to the price you're paying for a word called liberty. But the cold doesn't care about your ideals. It doesn't care about your blood. It only wants more. And as the wind howls through the barren trees, you hear something else. A faint sound, growing louder in the night. A cough, dry and ragged, coming from the huts. It's not just one. It's many. A chorus of sickness rising from the camp, creeping closer to you and Jedediah. The cold never leaves you. It clings to your skin, your breath, your thoughts. The bloody footprints you left in the snow have frozen into jagged red scars, marking your path through the valley. You and Jedediah shuffle back to the hut, your bodies heavy with exhaustion, your minds dulled by hunger. But there's a new sound now, one that cuts through the wind's howl. A dry, hacking cough. Echoing from the shadows of the camp. You crawl into the hut, the air inside thick with the smell of unwashed bodies and damp wood. The fire is little more than embers. Barely enough to warm your hands. You lie down, pressed close to Jedediah and the others, seeking any scrap of warmth. But the coughing doesn't stop. It's coming from the man next to you. His chest heaving with every ragged breath. Then another cough, from across the hut. Then another. It's a chorus now, a relentless rhythm that keeps sleep at bay. By morning, Jedediah is coughing too. His face is flushed, his eyes glassy, his breath hot against the cold air. You feel your own throat tighten, a faint scratch that wasn't there yesterday. Fear settles in, heavier than the hunger. Colder than the snow. You've heard the whispers, camp fever. Typhus. Smallpox. Names that mean death in a place like this, where medicine is as scarce as hope. The sergeant orders you to take Jedediah to the hospital, a word that promises more than it delivers. You help him to his feet, his weight leaning hard against you. The walk is slow. Each step a struggle through the snow. The hospital is just another hut, larger but no warmer, its air thick with the stench of sickness. Inside, men lie on straw, their faces gray, their bodies trembling. A surgeon, his hands stained and his eyes weary, moves between them, offering little more than a glance. You ease Jedediah onto a pile of straw. He tries to speak, but a cough cuts him off, sharp and painful. You kneel beside him, your own fear mirrored in his eyes. The warmth of the crowded hut, the closeness that kept you alive through the cold, is now a trap. Every breath you share with these men carries the seeds of disease. Every touch, every brush of skin, is a risk you can't avoid. You leave Jedediah there, his cough echoing in your ears as you step back into the snow. The valley feels smaller now, closing in around you. The hunger, the cold, the blood on your feet, they were enemies you could see, could fight. But this invisible killer, creeping through the air, through the men you sleep beside? It's something else entirely. And as you trudge back to your hut, the wind carries more coughs from the camp, a grim reminder that survival here is not just about enduring the winter. It's about outrunning something far worse. The coughs haunt your nights, a grim lullaby that never lets you rest. You lie in the hut, the air heavy with sickness and despair, wondering if you'll be next. The hunger gnaws, the cold bites. But it's the fear of what's spreading through the camp that keeps your eyes open in the dark. Dawn breaks, gray and unforgiving. You're called to muster, your body sluggish, your feet still wrapped in blood-stained rags. The valley stretches out before you, a maze of snow-covered huts and dying fires. Above it all, a lone figure sits on horseback, his silhouette stark against the pale sky. It's General Washington, his face carved from stone, his eyes scanning the ragged army below. You've seen him before, always at a distance. A man who seems to carry the weight of this entire war on his shoulders. His coat is dark blue, its gold trim faded but proud, his black tricorn hat tilted against the wind. He doesn't speak. Doesn't shout orders like the sergeants. He just watches, his gaze heavy with something you can't name, resolve, maybe, or sorrow. You stand straighter, despite the pain in your legs. Despite the hollow ache in your stomach. His presence is a reminder of why you're here, of the word liberty that still flickers in your mind, though it's grown faint. But the general's eyes don't meet yours. They sweep over the camp, over the men coughing into their fists, over the smoke rising from huts that offer no warmth. He turns his horse, slow and deliberate, and rides toward a cluster of officers. You hear whispers later, from men who overheard their talks. The army is crumbling. Supplies are gone. The Congress, far away in some warm hall, has forgotten you. The British are waiting, ready to crush what's left of this rebellion. And yet, Washington stays. He rides through the camp every day. A silent promise that he won't abandon you, even as the world seems to have. You shuffle back to your duties, the general's image lingering in your mind. His strength feels like a challenge. A call to keep going, even when your body begs to give up. But the coughs follow you, growing louder, more insistent. The valley is a crucible. And you're not sure if it's forging you into something stronger or burning you away. And then, a new sound breaks through the misery. The crunch of boots, the jingle of a harness. Someone new has arrived in the camp. Someone who doesn't belong to this broken world of snow and sickness. Someone who might change everything. The coughs fade into the background, drowned out by a new commotion in the camp. You lift your head, peering through the haze of smoke and snow. A stranger has arrived. His presence cutting through the misery like a blade. You see him from a distance, a stout figure in a dark blue greatcoat, glittering with a star-shaped metal that catches the weak winter light. It's Baron von Steuben, a Prussian officer, a man from a world far removed from this frozen valley. His face is stern, his eyes wide with what you can only describe as disgust as he surveys the camp. You and the other men, ragged and half-starved, must look like ghosts to him, haunting this wasteland of mud and despair. He steps forward, his boots sinking into the snow. His voice booming in a thick accent that makes the sergeants flinch. He doesn't see soldiers. He sees chaos, a mob of farmers and boys, clutching muskets they barely know how to use. You feel his gaze. Sharp and unforgiving, as it sweeps over you. It's not pity in his eyes. It's judgment. He barks something in German, then switches to broken English, his words clipped and impatient. "This is no army," he says, his voice carrying over the wind. "This is a disgrace." You bristle, the sting of his words sharper than the cold. But deep down, you know he's right. The men around you are broken, their spirits as tattered as their clothes. You've forgotten what it means to stand tall, to march as one. The Baron doesn't linger on insults. He moves with purpose. Calling for a small group of men, you among them, to gather in a snowy field. You shuffle forward, your feet numb, your musket dragging in the snow. He stands before you. His greatcoat flapping in the wind, and begins to shout commands. Not like the sergeants, with their tired orders, but with a fire that demands obedience. Stand straight. Hold your weapon like you mean it, he roars. You try to follow, but your body resists, weakened by hunger and cold. The other men stumble, their movements clumsy, their faces etched with exhaustion. The Baron's eyes narrow, but he doesn't soften. He steps closer, grabbing your musket to show you how to hold it, his hand steady despite the frost. His voice, though harsh, carries a strange kind of hope, a belief that you can be more than this. Day after day, he'll return to this field, drilling you, cursing your mistakes, forcing you to repeat each step until your muscles ache with memory. You don't understand it yet, but this man, this stranger from across the sea, is forging something new in the snow. Something that might save you. The Baron's voice still echoes in your ears, sharp and relentless, as you stumble through his drills in the snow. Your body aches, but there's a flicker of something new, purpose, perhaps. Or the faint hope that you might become more than a starving shadow. The camp, though, remains a frozen purgatory, and the weight of the war presses heavier each day. You're not alone in this struggle. Beyond the huts, beyond the coughs and the bloody footprints, there's a larger battle being fought. Not with muskets, but with words and will. You catch glimpses of it in the general's tense meetings with his officers, their faces grim under the flickering lantern light. Whispers spread among the men, the Continental Congress, safe in their distant halls, has left you to rot. Supplies are a memory. Allies are a dream. The army is fraying, held together only by the stubborn resolve of one man. That man is General Washington. You see him now, riding through the camp, his horse's hooves crunching the snow. His face is a mask, unreadable, but his eyes carry a fire that refuses to die. He's not like the officers who curse and complain. He's silent, steady, a pillar in the storm. You've heard stories, how he pleads with Congress for food, for blankets, for anything to keep this army alive. How he writes letters late into the night, his quill scratching out demands for a cause that seems lost. But the truth is uglier than the stories. The Congress is divided, weak, unable to agree on how to fund this war. The states hoard their resources, unwilling to send men or money. The British, warm and well-fed in Philadelphia, wait for you to collapse. You're not just fighting a king across the sea, you're fighting the indifference of your own people. Every fire cake you choke down, every step you take in blood-soaked rags, is a defiance of that betrayal. Washington knows this. You see it in the way he rides past, his shoulders squared against the wind. He's not here for glory. He's here because he believes in something bigger than himself, bigger than this valley. His presence is a quiet command, hold on. Survive. Not for him, but for the idea you all signed your names for. Back when liberty was a fire in your heart. And yet, even his resolve can't stop the hunger, the cold, or the sickness spreading through the camp. But something is shifting. The Baron's drills are relentless, and the men are starting to move as one. A spark of order in the chaos. And soon, another spark will arrive, news from across the sea. A whisper of hope that might change everything. The snow keeps falling, a silent weight on the camp, burying hope as easily as it buries the paths between huts. You move through the Baron's drills, your body learning the rhythm of his commands. But the cold and hunger still claw at you. The coughs from the huts grow quieter, not because the sickness is fading, but because too many men have gone silent. Then, one morning, a murmur spreads through the camp, soft at first, like a breeze before a storm. You're hauling logs, your hands raw and bleeding, when you hear it, France. The word hums among the men. Passed from mouth to mouth. France has joined the fight. An alliance, signed across the sea, promising ships, soldiers, supplies. You pause, your breath catching, not daring to believe it yet. You glance at Jedediah, back from the hospital hut, his face still pale but his cough softer now. He meets your eyes, and for the first time in weeks, there's a spark there. A flicker of the boy who signed up with you for this dream of liberty. France, he whispers, testing the word, as if saying it aloud might make it real. The officers confirm it later. Their voices low but urgent. A French fleet is coming. Men trained in war, not farmers with pitchforks, will stand beside you. Supplies, real food, warm coats, powder for your muskets, are promised. Though they're still months away. You feel something stir in your chest, a warmth that has nothing to do with the weak fire at your feet. It's not just hope. It's defiance. You've survived this long. Through blood and frost and fever. You can hold on a little longer. But the valley doesn't care about alliances or promises. The snow falls heavier now, the wind sharper. You and Jedediah stand shoulder to shoulder in the drill line, the Baron's voice barking over the storm. Your movements are crisper, your musket steadier in your hands. You're not the boy who stumbled into this camp, half dead and afraid. You're something else now, shaped by the cold and the hunger, by the Baron's relentless drills, by Washington's unyielding will. The news from France is a spark, but it's not enough to warm the valley. You know the truth, survival still depends on you, on the men beside you, on the stubborn refusal to break. And as you march through the snow, you hear the Baron's voice again, not just commanding but promising. Promising that when spring comes, you'll be ready. Ready to fight, not just to survive. The promise of France feels like a distant star, flickering but too far to warm you. The snow keeps falling, piling around the huts, and the drills under Baron von Steuben grow harder each day. Your body moves with new precision, but it's a fragile strength, built on hunger and stubborn will. The valley still holds you in its icy grip, and every night. The coughs remind you how close death lingers. You're on fatigue duty now, sent to gather firewood in a forest stripped bare by the army's desperation. Your hands, wrapped in the same blood-stained rags, grip the axe, the same dull blade you shared with 12 men to build your hut. Each swing is weaker than the last, your arms trembling from exhaustion. The trees are gone, reduced to stumps, so you hack at roots, prying them from the frozen earth. The cold burns your lungs with every breath. And the wind carries the faint moans of the sick from the camp. Jedediah is with you, his cough quieter but still there, a shadow that won't leave. You work in silence. The only sounds the crunch of snow and the dull thud of the axe. You glance at him, his face gaunt, his eyes fixed on the ground. You want to ask if he's all right, but the question feels pointless. None of you are all right. You're just alive, and even that feels borrowed. A shout breaks the silence. A rider gallops into the camp, his horse kicking up snow. You and Jedediah pause. Leaning on your axes, watching as men gather around. The rider's coat is dusted with frost, his face red from the cold. He carries papers, sealed with wax, and the officers rush to meet him. Whispers spread fast, news from the Congress, or maybe from the French. You don't dare hope, but your heart betrays you, beating faster. The officers call a muster, and you trudge back. Your arms full of splintered roots. The men line up, shivering, their breath clouding the air. The news is read aloud, the French are sending more than promises. Ships are on their way. Carrying muskets, cannons, and men. Not just men, soldiers, trained and disciplined, ready to stand against the British. The crowd stirs, a low murmur of disbelief and relief. For the first time, you see smiles, faint but real, on faces that had forgotten how. You look at Jedediah, and he nods, his lips cracking into a grin. The Baron, standing nearby, doesn't smile. But his eyes gleam with something fierce. Washington is there too, his horse still, his face unreadable but his presence steady. The news doesn't fill your stomach or warm your feet. But it lights something inside you, a fire that might carry you through the last of this winter. The news from France burns like a small flame in your chest, fragile but stubborn. The snow still falls, the hunger still gnaws, but the drills under Baron von Steuben feel different now. Each step, each turn of your musket, carries a new weight, a purpose you thought you'd lost. The valley remains a frozen crucible, but you're starting to believe you might emerge from it. You stand in the drill line, your breath clouding in the icy air. The Baron paces before you. His greatcoat dusted with snow, his voice cutting through the wind. Again, he shouts, his accent thick but clear. You pivot, raise your musket, and step in time with the others. Your movements are not perfect, but they're sharper, more like soldiers than survivors. The men around you, once stumbling and weak, now march with a rhythm that echoes beyond the snow. Jedediah is beside you, his cough a faint rattle now, his face less pale. He catches your eye and nods, a silent vow to keep going. The Baron notices too, his stern gaze softening for a moment. A flicker of approval. He doesn't praise you outright, his way is too hard for that, but his commands grow fiercer, as if he sees something in you worth forging. Beyond the drills. The camp is changing. The news of the French alliance has stirred the men, like a wind shaking dead leaves from a tree. You hear it in their voices. See it in the way they share their meager firecakes, offering a bite to a neighbor without being asked. The hospital hut, once a place of despair, now hums with talk of spring, of battles to come. Of a war that might not be lost. You pass General Washington on his horse, his silhouette a constant in the chaos. He doesn't speak, but his presence is a reminder. You're not just fighting to survive this winter. You're fighting for something bigger, something that crosses oceans and binds men like the Baron and the French to your cause. His eyes, scanning the camp, seem to carry that truth, steady and unyielding. The cold hasn't left. The hunger hasn't faded. But as you march through the snow, your musket steady in your hands. You feel a shift. The valley isn't just a place of suffering anymore. It's a forge, and you're being shaped into something new. Something that might, when the snow melts, march out of this valley not as a broken boy, but as a soldier ready to fight. The snow begins to thin, patches of earth peeking through like forgotten promises. The air still bites. But there's a softness to it, a hint that winter might finally be loosening its grip. You stand in the drill line, your musket lighter in your hands now, your steps surer. The Baron's commands are a rhythm you know by heart, and the men around you move as one, a shadow of the army you might become. You catch sight of Jedediah, his shoulders straighter. His cough nearly gone. He flashes you a grin, quick and boyish, the first real smile you've seen from him in months. It stirs something in you, a memory of the days before the valley. When liberty was a song you both sang without fear. You nod back, your own lips twitching upward, though the weight of the winter still lingers in your bones. The camp buzzes with new energy. Word of the French ships grows louder, no longer a whisper but a steady hum. Supplies have started to trickle in, blankets, not enough but more than before. And barrels of salted pork that make your mouth water at the thought. You and Jedediah share a piece one evening, the meat tough but warm, a luxury after months of firecakes. You chew slowly, savoring each bite, the taste a small victory over the hunger that's defined you. General Washington rides through the camp, his presence as steady as ever. You see him pause near the Baron. Their heads bent together, talking in low voices. The Baron gestures sharply, his hands tracing invisible lines of strategy, while Washington nods. His face still unreadable but his eyes alive with purpose. You don't know their plans, but you feel them, a current running through the camp, pulling you towards something bigger. The drills grow more complex now, not just marching but mock battles, bayonet charges across the snow. Your body protests, still weak from the winter, but you push through. Driven by the Baron's relentless voice and the faint hope of spring. You're not just surviving anymore. You're preparing. For what, you're not sure. But the valley feels less like a grave and more like a crucible, forging you day by day. And as the snow melts, dripping from the bare branches, you hear a new sound. Not coughs. Not the wind's howl, but the creak of wagon wheels. More supplies, more men, maybe even the French themselves. The valley is waking, and you, forged in its cold, are waking with it. The snow is nearly gone now, replaced by mud that clings to your boots, heavy and cold. The valley hums with a cautious hope. Carried on the creak of wagon wheels and the growing rhythm of the Baron's drills. You stand taller, your musket a part of you now, its weight familiar in your hands. The hunger lingers. But it's no longer the master of your days. You're in the drill field again, the Baron's voice a steady drumbeat over the squelch of mud. He's teaching you to load and fire in unison. Each motion sharp and deliberate. Faster, he barks, his eyes scanning for weakness. You fumble at first, powder spilling from your trembling hands, but you learn. Step by step. You and the men around you become something more, a unit, not a mob. Jedediah, beside you, moves with the same precision, his face set with quiet determination. The camp is alive in a way it hasn't been. Wagons roll in, their loads covered with canvas, bringing not just food but boots, coats, and muskets that don't jam in the cold. You hold a new pair of boots in your hands, the leather stiff but whole, a shield against the mud and frost. You slip them on, the feeling strange after months of rags, and for a moment. You stand a little straighter, a soldier in truth. General Washington watches from a distance, his horse steady in the churned-up earth. He's always there. A quiet force binding the camp together. You hear the men talk of him now, not as a distant figure but as one of you, enduring the same winter, the same doubts. They say he prays for the army. Alone in his tent, his faith as unyielding as his presence. You don't know if it's true, but you want to believe it. The French alliance is no longer just a rumor. Officers read letters aloud. Their voices carrying over the camp. Ships have landed, bringing men in crisp uniforms, their muskets gleaming, their accents strange but welcome. You haven't seen them yet. But their presence is a promise, a weight that tips the balance of this war. The men around you talk of battles, not survival, their voices louder, their eyes brighter. As you march through the mud, the Baron's commands ringing in your ears, you feel the valley's grip loosening. The cold, the hunger, the sickness, they haven't vanished. But they no longer define you. You're not the boy who staggered into this camp, broken and afraid. You're something new, forged in the crucible of this winter. Ready for the fight that waits beyond the valley. The mud clings to your new boots, but they hold strong, a small defiance against the valley's relentless grip. The air carries a faint warmth now, a whisper of spring that softens the edges of the cold. You march in the Baron's drills, your musket steady, your steps aligned with the men around you. The camp is no longer a graveyard of hope, it's a forge, and you feel yourself hardening into something new. You're assigned to a work detail today, unloading wagons that have rolled in with the dawn. The crates are heavy, filled with flour, salt pork, and, most precious, cartridges for your musket. You and Jedediah work side by side, your hands steadier than they were months ago. He hums a tune. Faint and off-key, but it's the first time you've heard him try since the winter took hold. You join in, your voice rough, the melody a quiet rebellion against the misery you've endured. The French have arrived. Not just rumors now, but men in blue coats, their buttons gleaming, their voices sharp with an accent you strain to understand. They move through the camp with a confidence you envy, their muskets slung with ease, their steps precise from years of training. You watch them, these soldiers from across the sea, and feel a strange mix of awe and determination. They're here for you, for this cause, and it makes the word liberty feel real again. General Washington meets with their officers. his tall figure unmistakable even from a distance. You see him gesture toward the drill fields, where the Baron is shaping your ragged army into something sharper. The French officers nod. Their faces serious but curious, as if measuring the men who've survived this valley. You wonder what they see, ghosts of winter, or soldiers ready to fight. The Baron calls you to the field again. His commands sharper now, laced with urgency. You are not farmers, he shouts, his voice carrying over the camp. You are an army. You load your musket, aim at an invisible enemy, and fire in unison with the others. The crack of the shots echoes through the valley, a sound that feels like a promise. You're not just surviving anymore. You're preparing to march out. To meet the British, to claim the freedom you've paid for in blood and frost. As the sun sets, painting the sky in hues of gold and gray, you stand with Jedediah, watching the camp come alive with fires and voices. The valley has changed you, stripped you down and rebuilt you. Spring is near, and with it, the war waits. You're ready, not just to survive, but to fight for something bigger than yourself. The valley is alive now, its pulse quickening with the first green shoots breaking through the mud. The air smells of wet earth, not just frost. And the sun lingers longer, warming your face as you march. Your musket feels like an extension of your arm, its weight a comfort rather than a burden. The Baron's drills have carved discipline into your bones, and you move with a purpose that feels like defiance. You stand in formation, Jedediah at your side. His face no longer gaunt but sharp with focus. The French soldiers drill nearby, their movements crisp, their blue coats a stark contrast to your patched rags. You watch them load and fire. Their volleys precise, and you feel a fire in your chest. You're not just mimicking them anymore, you're becoming their equal, step by step, under the Baron's unrelenting gaze. The camp hums with preparation. Tents are mended, muskets cleaned, and the wagons keep coming, their wheels churning the mud. You help stack crates of powder and shot. Your hands steady despite the scars of winter. The men around you talk of Philadelphia, of facing the British, of proving what this army has become. Their voices carry a strength you haven't heard before, a belief that the valley has forged something unbreakable. General Washington rides through the camp, his horse stepping lightly over the softening ground. You see him stop to speak with a French officer, their heads bent over maps, their gestures quick and urgent. The war is shifting. And you feel it in the air, a current pulling you forward, out of the valley, toward a fight you can almost see. Washington's eyes sweep over you, and for a moment, you think they linger. As if he sees the soldier you've become. The Baron calls for one last drill before nightfall. You march, load, and fire, the motions fluid now, the crack of your musket blending with the others. The French soldiers watch, some nodding, their faces showing respect instead of pity. The Baron's voice, still harsh, carries a new tone, pride, perhaps, or the certainty that you're ready. This is your army, he shouts, and you believe him. As the stars emerge, you sit by a fire with Jedediah, sharing a piece of bread, not fire cake, but real bread, soft and warm. The valley is behind you now, its lessons carved into your soul. Tomorrow, you'll march out, not as the boy who stumbled into this winter, but as a soldier forged in its crucible, ready to meet whatever lies beyond. The valley wakes to a dawn streaked with pink and gold, the mud drying under a sun that finally feels like spring. Your breath no longer clouds the air. And the weight of your musket feels lighter, as if the valley itself is releasing you. The camp is a hive of motion, tents folded, crates loaded. Men checking their gear with a purpose that hums through the air. You stand with Jedediah, your new boots caked with drying mud, your musket polished and ready. The Baron's drills are over. His voice quieter now, replaced by a nod of approval as he inspects your formation. You're no longer a ragtag band of survivors. You're an army, lean and hardened. Shaped by the winter's cruelty and the Baron's relentless will. The French soldiers marched nearby, their blue coats bright against the greening valley. You exchange glances with one of them. A young man not much older than you, his eyes curious but kind. He offers a quick salute, and you return it, a silent bond forged across oceans. You're not alone anymore, the weight of this war is shared, and that makes it feel lighter, even if just for a moment. General Washington gathers the army for a final address. You stand in the ranks. Shoulder to shoulder with Jedediah and the others, as his horse paces before you. His voice is steady, not loud but carrying a force that silences the camp. You have endured, he says. His eyes meeting yours, then moving to the men around you. You have become the heart of this cause. The world watches, and we will not falter. His words settle into you, heavy and true. The valley has taken so much, your strength, your hope, your friends, but it's given you something too. You're not the boy who stumbled into this winter, broken by hunger and cold. You're a soldier. Carrying the scars of Valley Forge like a badge, ready to march toward Philadelphia, toward the British, toward the liberty you've paid for in blood. As the army forms up, drums beating a steady rhythm, you take your place in the line. Jedediah is beside you, his face set, his eyes clear. The valley lies behind you, its mud and snow a memory. Its lessons a fire in your soul. You step forward, one foot in front of the other, into a spring that promises not just warmth, but a fight worth enduring. The valley fades behind you. Its mud and memory sinking into the earth as the army marches out. The sun climbs higher, warming your shoulders, and the rhythm of drums matches your steps. Your musket rests easy on your shoulder. Its weight a reminder of the soldier you've become. Jedediah marches beside you, his stride steady, his face lit with a quiet fire that mirrors your own. The French soldiers move with you. Their blue coats vivid against the green of the sprouting fields. Their laughter and unfamiliar words blend with the creak of wagons and the low hum of your own men's voices. You feel a strange unity. A thread tying you to these strangers who've crossed an ocean for the same cause. The word liberty feels alive again, not just a dream but a fire kindled in this valley. Baron von Steuben rides ahead. His greatcoat flapping, his eyes scanning the ranks with a fierce pride. He shouts no commands now, but his presence is enough. A reminder of the discipline he carved into you through the winter's worst. You owe him your strength, your ability to march as one, to hold your musket not as a burden but as a tool of purpose. General Washington leads the column, his horse steady, his figure tall against the horizon. The men watch him, drawing strength from his silence, his unyielding resolve. You've heard the stories, how he held the army together when Congress turned away, when hunger and fever threatened to break you. Now, as you march toward Philadelphia, you carry his belief in you. A weight heavier than your musket but one you're proud to bear. The road ahead is long, the British waiting with their red coats and their cannons. You know the battles to come won't be easy. The valley taught you that nothing is. But you're not the boy who stumbled into that frozen camp, broken by cold and fear. You're a soldier, forged in hunger and frost, bound to Jedediah. To the French, to Washington, to a cause that burns brighter than the winter ever did. As the valley disappears from view, you glance back one last time. The scars of your footprints, the smoke of forgotten fires, the echoes of coughs, they're all part of you now. But so is the fire in your heart, the strength in your step, the army at your side. You turn forward. Eyes on the horizon, ready for whatever lies ahead. The road stretches before you, a ribbon of earth cutting through fields now green with spring. The valley is a memory. Its cold and hunger a scar you carry but no longer feel. Your musket swings lightly on your shoulder, your steps firm in boots that no longer leak. Jedediah marches beside you, his breath steady. His eyes fixed on the horizon where Philadelphia waits. The army moves as one, a river of men flowing with purpose. The French soldiers add color to the ranks, their blue coats catching the sunlight. Their disciplined steps a steady drumbeat beside your own. You hear their voices, sharp and unfamiliar, mingling with the low hum of your comrades' talk of battles, of home. Of what liberty might mean when this is over. Baron von Steuben rides near the front, his stern face softened by the spring light. He no longer shouts. But his presence is a fire that keeps the army sharp. You owe him more than discipline, you owe him the belief that you could be more than a boy with a musket, more than a survivor of a cruel winter. His drills turned you into a soldier, and now you march with the pride of one. General Washington is ahead, his horse a steady point in the moving tide of men. His silence is a strength you all lean into, his resolve a beacon guiding you toward the fight. You've heard the whispers, the British are entrenched, their numbers strong, their cannons ready. But you've faced worse than cannons. You've faced a valley that tried to break you, and you walked away stronger. You glance at Jedediah, his face lit by the same fire that burns in you. You don't need words to know you're both thinking of the valley, of the blood-soaked rags, the firecakes, the coughs that stole so many. Those memories are heavy, but they're fuel now, driving you forward. You're not marching to survive anymore. You're marching to fight, to claim the freedom you've paid for in ways the British will never understand. The sun climbs higher, warming the earth, and the road leads you closer to the war's heart. You feel it in your bones, a certainty that this army, forged in the crucible of Valley Forge, is ready. You grip your musket. Your step steady, and with Jedediah at your side, you march into the spring, into the fight, into the future you'll build with every step. The road hums beneath your boots. Each step a pulse of purpose as the army moves toward Philadelphia. The spring air is warm, fragrant with blooming fields, a stark contrast to the valley's icy grip. Your musket swings in rhythm. A steady companion, and Jedediah's presence at your side feels like an anchor, grounding you in the fire you both carry. The French soldiers march in tight formation. Their banners snapping in the breeze, their voices rising in songs you don't understand but feel in your bones. You catch their eyes sometimes, a nod or a grin passing between you. A silent promise of shared strength. They're not strangers anymore, they're brothers in this fight, bound by the same hope that carried you through the winter. Baron von Steuben rides alongside. His sharp eyes scanning the ranks, but there's a new lightness in his posture, as if the spring has softened even him. He doesn't bark orders now, just watches. His silence a testament to the army he's shaped. You feel it in your movements, in the way your musket snaps to your shoulder, in the unity of the men around you. The valley forged you. But the Baron gave you form. General Washington is a constant ahead, his horse a steady beacon. You see him turn in the saddle, his gaze sweeping over the army, and you swear he lingers on you. On Jedediah, on the men who survived the crucible. His face is still a mask, but there's a fire in his eyes that matches your own, a belief that this march is not toward defeat, but toward something greater. The talk among the men is no longer of hunger or cold, but of what lies ahead. Philadelphia, the British, the battles that will test the steel you forged. You hear stories of other victories, small but growing, carried on the wind from distant camps. The war is alive, and you're part of it, no longer a boy hiding in a wooden tomb, but a soldier stepping into the light. As the sun arcs across the sky, you feel the weight of the valley fall away. Its scars remain, on your hands, in your memories, but they're no longer wounds. They're proof of what you've endured, of what you've become. With Jedediah beside you, with the army around you, you march toward the fight. The word liberty no longer a dream but a fire that burns in every step.